Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome back to another conversation from the heart. The mission in these conversations is to bring you wisdom through vulnerably discussing transformational life experiences and imparting the impactful techniques and life hacks that will connect you to your most powerful self during and as we move out of to the new world after COVID-19. Join me now for discussion with Matthew Soule. Oh, we're mirrored that way. Head instructor and owner at Greenlake Martial Arts and top-level Wim Hof method instructor from the local Seattle area. He is a man on a mission to empower people to master the stress response for peak human performance. I'm really excited to have you on today, Matthew.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Chris.
Awesome. Well, so, you're doing Wim Hof, you're doing martial arts. How are you faring and what are you up to now during this quarantine session and this times?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I mean, just from a very practical standpoint, I've had to pivot some of the business to a more virtual environment. So try to find ways to connect to the community, my martial arts community, and deliver, good value services there. Keep everybody connected and try to keep them looking forward to something. I mean, this time is a little bit weird and we need some of those just anchor points in our lives on a daily basis to connect. So that's been useful. I've been teaching Wim Hof online, specifically some level 1 fundamentals classes. And then Sundays, I'm teaching a 5-week series, called The Art of the Practice.
Nice.
But really, I've taken this opportunity to do a lot of reflection. We've got a lot of downtime and I try to just return back to the inside and try to figure out what is this going to look like? How can we move forward through the space that we're in? How to not get gripped by anxiety. Many of the people I've talked to have been just riddled with huge anxiety, and I understand. It's a difficult time because there's so much uncertainty. Totally. And so for me, it's been a matter of just anchoring the practice of Wim Hof, in martial arts. These are very much survival stress tools that are highly valuable. So I've just been trying to be really consistent in my own practice and not push it. I'm not doing crazy long ice baths. I'm not doing, tons of breathing or anything like that.
You're not going to the river for 10 minutes, negative 2 degrees.
As much as I love that stuff and love to challenge myself and love to get into the deepest of the cold, man, I've been relying on the most basic, get up every morning, do my 3 rounds of Wim Hof breathing, do a short meditation, center myself, get into a shower for a couple of minutes, that's cold. And that's really it.
Yeah. And really quickly, just for viewers and people that don't know what Wim Hof breathing is, can you describe that in just the simplest way possible so that people can potentially reproduce it just off of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So the very basics of it are relatively rapid breathing, trying to find rhythmicity. So find a good rhythm of full breaths, fully in and letting go. And you do that for about 30 to 40 breaths. We do a breath hold, which is just going to lung neutral after you let go with an exhale. You're going to hold for as long as you can. And then when you feel a strong urge to breathe, you'll take a breath in, and that's a recovery breath. So those are the 3 parts, 30 to 40 breaths that are fairly rapid, exhale, hold for as long as you can, breathe in, there's your recovery breath. And for those that really need a solid guide, I really encourage you to just download the free app if you've got a smartphone. Honestly, that's the best way. They've got it on iOS and Android.
Yeah, and there's many videos online as well. And I mean, so for you, what does that do exactly when you do say, 2 rounds? What does that end up with? Where do you start and where do you end up before and after that breathing session? What's the benefit?
Yeah, so that's a wonderful question. So this particular method specifically is designed to induce a hermetic stress response, right? Yeah. So the hermetic stress response is a short-term stress that can be beneficial. And the key there, of course, is short-term. So I induce a small bit of stress and come down afterward with a good recovery. And so what I feel before is I wake up in the morning and my body's just kind of, ambling through, trying to get up and get started. But as I do that breathing, I'm wide awake. I feel energized. I feel full. I feel a little bit happy. I feel satiated. So all of those kind of good things. And I also feel calm. So I've got that energetic feel and the calm feel. So that's an important aspect. So it's it offers that good duality. And it's a great start for the day. Just pulls you on and you're ready to go, do the rest of your thing that you got to do.
Totally. Yeah, it's a little bit of that mental practice, which is fantastic. Yeah, so I know that you're currently the owner of the martial arts studio. You currently are a top level Wim Hof instructor. You were one of the very first rounds of instructors in the Americas, right?
Yeah, in the United States.
United States, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you get here? Like, what was there a recentering or a grounding or like a rite of passage or something that happened to you? Did you like arrive somewhere where you decided like, hey, I need to get into this stuff? What was kind of your path like?
Outside of active avoidance of the cold?
No. Sure.
I would say that what honestly pulled me in was I've always been a meditator. I'll just sit there. I've had a lot of exposure to Qigong and different meditations throughout different martial arts and just of interest. I've always loved breath work and so forth. So that wasn't terribly new, but the cold is something that I never really liked. However, I was dealing with some injuries due to competing, and just doing martial arts can be very hard on your body.
Yeah.
And I wasn't healing. So I think that in combination of just overworking and so forth and developing injuries, the inflammation response was just active and constant, and I wasn't getting better. So that's really what pulled me in originally.
Got it. And so you were able to heal those injuries through, adding in, was it the Wim Hof method that specifically helped you to heal those?
100%. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was getting to the point where I had like constant pain in my shoulder, my leg, all the way up basically from the ankle all the way up to the hip, through the knee. I was having sciatica pain on my right side that was like innervating nerve pain into my crotch. I mean, it was kind of everywhere. I developed pretty bad pain into my jaw and ear from getting choked, and this kind of thing too much. So long story short, I developed a lot of different things, and a lot of them would come and go. They were always kind of present, but they would get worse or a little bit better. And then there got to be a point where they just weren't getting better.
Yeah.
And that's really what motivated me to seek outside modalities. I'm like, this isn't working. Any protocols of just putting like ice bags on your body, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, because as an athlete, that's really common, throw some ice on it, but it actually wasn't doing enough. So, but as I went through the Wim Hof method, man, it was transformative, absolutely transformative on a number of levels, not only in pain reduction, which was obviously a huge thing, not only with connective tissue regeneration and letting my body just do what it needs to do to get better. But in terms of my overall mobility and flexibility and so forth, I've seen huge gains in terms of how my body is able to move. And it just keeps improving. So it's been many years now at this point. We're 2020, so whatever that, but it just, I still see improvements in my jujitsu practice and my Chunjo practice, which is stand-up martial art that I do. Yeah. So I just can't speak highly enough. The Wim Hof method for me has turned into a fundamental practice applied through just about every area of my life.
Wow.
That's what it turned into. It didn't start there, of course, but that's what it turned into, mostly because I keep seeing results. I'm a very result-driven and oriented person. And as it shows up in these new formats, I'm willing to accept, all right, well, let's apply it there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super. That's amazing. Yeah, and I met you in person down in LA when you were teaching the advanced instructors training course. So like I'm on that pathway, and you were just like an amazing teacher, and I can't say enough about how amazing this dude is for teaching and for getting across the concepts and everything. It's really, really amazing.
I appreciate that.
Oh, go ahead.
Would you mind me asking, like, what was the big motivation for you? I mean, you're going down this train.
Yeah.
You're going down this path.
Yeah. So I heard about the Wim Hof method on Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory podcast,
Okay.
and Wim was on it, and he, talked for an hour about the breath and the cold and meditation and mindfulness and how it's really good for anxiety and panic and improving yourself. And I've been on that vein of it took me like 10 years to start an everyday meditation practice, and it was like hard to get into. And but I've been on that vein for a while, and I'm always interested in improving and figuring out like the best way to do things. And it just seemed so simple, so practical, and so like results oriented. I loved the science behind it. I love that they have like we all have like 6 studies behind it right now, and there were a bunch more coming out this year. I don't know what's happening now with COVID, but hopefully those will still come out. I just fell in love with it. I mean, I grew up with severe asthma and panic attacks, so I was in the hospital like 30 times between the age of 2 and 13. And so for me, hearing the breath and my relationship with the breath, even 2 years ago, was still really like tentative and not very connected. And same thing with my body as well, because with that past and asthma and anxiety and panic and anxiousness and all of that and allergies and everything, I grew out of it physically for the most part, but mentally it was still all there in my head. And I didn't even know it at the time. And so I was looking for more ways, like how can I connect with the breath? How can I find new ways to really improve my body and my mind-body connection, which I thought was really good at the time. And so I just went and read What Doesn't Kill Us and the smaller books by Wim and the Iceman and all of that stuff, and watched all the videos and everything, and just really fell in love with the science and the way that it's done, and the emphasis on no ego, and it's not a competition, it's all a personal practice, is like huge to me. And that resonates a lot with the entire Inner Fire community, basically, which is like amazing, which I love it. And so I went and bought like the 10-week fundamentals course, and then I just been on the whole thing since. Went to the winter retreat this January, and that was like one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life, just like realizing that until that day when I was doing a power breathing session, that I had been fighting my body my entire life instead of harmonizing and working with it together to do things. So even with like yoga, it would always be like forcing my body into this position rather than like, oh, how can I breathe into this position? Yeah. And the difference between that full mental focus and then that getting the mind out of the way to be present in your body. And it was just like incredible. I mean, I was like crying for like a half an hour on the ground with like, my body was just tears of joy going, finally, dude, you figured it out. Thank you for not being such an ass to me anymore. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that type Beautiful. That whole thing.
That's huge, and to have those transformative experiences and that insight. I mean, that's really what this life is about. You know what I mean? Yeah. Finding that deepest points of connection.
Yeah.
And it's interesting about the Wim Hof method, how it has that capability to do that.
Totally.
And you mentioned something really poignant, and that was the relationship that you thought you had with your mind and body was just sort of turned on its head a little bit, if I heard that correctly. And you were just given this deeper insight. And I feel the same way. I've always thought I was pretty in touch with my body, in touch with the breath. And through this practice, I've realized just what the levels of depth that we are capable of, many years into this now, I feel like I'm still just scratching, and just digging layer after layer, especially as it provides just a platform to investigate with all kinds of other different meditative techniques that I enjoy, different Qigong practices or different single point meditations, this kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and I'm looking at like combining that, like the breathing technique and the cold and everything with sound therapy, basically like sound baths, sound immersions, and using different ways to combine all of that together into like an additional thing. It's so much fun to be able to take that. And I also love what you're saying. Years down the road, you still feel like you're just scratching the surface. Like
Yeah.
That's such a cool thing to be able to look forward to, because typically, you get some sort of a practice or whatever that is, and it becomes a habit, it becomes rote, it becomes the same thing, and it becomes boring. But when you're using the cold, for example, it's like, you're never going to win. It's not a competition. You
Yeah.
can't like defeat the cold one day and move on to the next thing. Like, that's not how it works. It's
Right.
like every day you take a cold shower and you're like, all right, I'm getting in now. And you're like, there you go. It feels fantastic.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the breath. It's like you get into those spaces, and like each time you get somewhere, you never get to the same place.
Mm.
It's always the unknown. It's always, that connecting with the 0 point field or whatever you want to call it, go into all that. But it's incredible. It's super, super fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. To me, so much about um, when you've got a practice that really works, let's just start there. Uh, Staying curious about it, staying actively engaged in it is one of the most critical aspects, because it will show you new things all the time. And it's easy to get complacent with stuff. But if we can really dig in, that's where the true benefits are over the long term. So for me, for example, I always try to go back to the fundamentals. Like
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I've been just relentless about this last year, and I mean that in a good way. Um, this last year is basically looking at all of the different fundamentals of just how we breathe, simple mechanics,
Yeah.
really just playing with the absolute smallest little pieces, staying curious about them, understanding the mechanisms behind them, doing exercises that work on those pieces. Because then when I go back to my regular practice of doing my 30 to 40 breaths and so forth, like I have an incredibly different experience. It's like always staying curious about that. And the Wim Hof method, I think, provides that platform to keep me curious, because it's still eliciting a lot of these results many years later. So
Mm-hmm.
over the long term, I just think that that's one of the reasons that I enjoy it so much. Um, it just keeps me active, keeps me
Yeah.
curious, keeps me excited to look at how I can improve these different pieces of the practice.
Totally. Well, I mean, and the breath is so integrally connected with like how much energy you have and what your
Sure.
posture is like,
Yeah.
and how everything works in I mean, even your digestion and everything, your diaphragm is moving all of your organs and like up and down and massaging the inside. It's like, what can you do to improve that? Because that's like, it's really the core of everything. If
Yeah.
you can improve your breath and your posture and the way that your body is, your mind is more centered, your body is more centered, you have more energy, you're aligned, you can do more things. It's like why not? Like literally everybody should have a breathing practice. Like that's like what I want to get everybody to
Yes.
have.
Yeah. I think that's a wonderful mission, brother. Wonderful mission. No question about it. Well, I love
Combined.
this what you're doing with the sound bath stuff, because I
Yeah.
feel like so much about. You asked me at the beginning of the conversation, for example,
Mhm.
uh, why what do you feel like before you breathe and after you breathe? And
Mhm.
certainly in the morning, I'm just getting up, as I mentioned, and getting the day started. But I also use this in terms of meeting stress.
Yeah.
And in terms of the stress response, for example, this is a type of activity and a type of breathing that meets you where you're at. So as you elevate into a stress level, that breathing matches that stress level, takes you up just a little higher, and then brings you back down. And in
Hmm.
that process, I like to call that basically like breath entrainment. Are you familiar with the concept of entrainment?
Entrainment, is that where I kind of no, I'm not. Explain
That's
it.
okay. The basic idea here, it's often used with music. That's why I asked you. Uh,
Ah.
and so I'll give you an analogy rather than a definition.
Mhm.
So with music, you can imagine if you were in a relatively high energetic, ready to run and go, just crash through all of the fields, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
You're just really energetic there. And all of a sudden you hear this just like light, low classical music that's sort of melancholy and drab. Like that would be grating to your nervous system.
Totally.
You wouldn't want to hear it. What do you want to hear? You want to hear music that helps you to jump through the fields, right?
Hmm.
Matches your energetic state, if you will.
Yeah.
And so breathing is like that, right? So if I've got a high anxiety level or a high stress level, right, that's sort of amping up, if I can also meet the breath where it's at, I can meet my nervous system there, and then I can direct it better. So just
Mm.
imagine that if you wanted to, you're really just really high there and you want to come down, you want to shift your nervous system state to a more relaxed place. Well,
Yeah.
one of the things you could do from the musical entrainment side is you play a music that matches your mood right there, matches where you are, your high anxiety state. The next song down would be a little bit softer, but still pretty
Mm.
amped. The next song down would be softer. And by the third or fourth song, you'd just be back to normal chilling. You've just taken your
Got
entire
it.
emotional state back down. Well, if you look at the way even the heart rate works with Wim Hof method, if you look at the way oxygen saturation and the chemical composition in the blood is shifting throughout every round of breathing, it looks like that sine and cosine wave.
Yeah.
Just the same, right? And so at the end, by the time you're done, you've matched your level and you've brought yourself down to a new place. So that's why I call it breath entrainment, right? And it's a very powerful thing. And if you can combine that with things like different types of music, oh,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
magic to be happened, brother. There's so much, so with your sound baths, I'm sure that can be a method to engage people on a deep and profound level. I
Yeah,
suspect.
totally. Yeah, I mean, what we've been doing is like combining, basically bringing in like a little bit of relaxation at the beginning with some like handpan music and stuff like that, and then leading people into the breath work itself. Do like 2 to 3 rounds of breath work, then do, oh no, excuse me, body scanning first.
Mm-hmm.
So body scan meditation, bring in yourself to your body, go into 2 to 3 rounds of breathing, and then moving into afterwards the actual sound bath itself. So you're using the gongs throughout, like different instruments throughout this to accompany the breathing, and then bring them in afterwards to like an entire like sound experience that has built-in affirmations depending on what type of a crowd we're playing for at the moment. It's like I have like transformational travel people, or we're doing a thing for women in politics next week. So we're combining and creating specific things for each type of group of people that we're working for. So it's really, really, really fun. And then yeah, we haven't been doing as much entrainment in that way as creating the whole experience itself. And like, for example, the gong sounds are used as like additions to the meditations at the beginning, but then you go into a space of transformational playing where you like really bring them up and create more noise, and that's your hormetic stress. So you're bringing in a hermetic stressor from a state of really deep relaxation, bring in that extra additional stress that acts just like the cold or just like the deep breathing that brings in that experience and then brings you back down afterwards to a lower one. So you're doing a similar type of thing but you're using sound to do that as well. So like my vision is, how can we create an experience that combines like a full Wim Hof, like everything with the rounds, with the breathing and with the background, and then the ice bath, and then combine in like a sound bath experience into that is like my dream of how that would be really cool. Or you can even do that during the breathing itself. It's like, instead of playing like whatever songs are going on, you literally bring in the gongs and different instruments and you go around playing music and creating that experience during the breathwork exercises too. So it's like an added stressor, basically. It's cool.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, and gongs have got a lot of vibratory,
Totally.
energy, and so I love gongs. I use gongs in my martial art. I'm a kung fu teacher, of course,
Yeah.
as well, and so that's how we open up and close every class, is through gong and meditation. And so it's very powerful. That's serious.
That's a 38-incher. Yeah, it'll just go for a while, whatever it'll go.
Yeah. That's a huge one, man. That's
Yeah.
an intense
You should hear it
one.
when you're here.
Yeah, I bet.
But
So how many different gongs do you have there?
I have 4. I have the 38-inch Earth Sound Creation. Then down below is a 36-inch. It's a dark water from Gongland. And then that's called Chiron. It's a 32. And then there's a 24-inch one down there. To kind of put together the whole collection, because I just like, I went to a couple of sound baths back. I've gone to them quite a few, but I always experienced like really amazing experiences. They just didn't have built in the structure to make it really lasting and transformational, because you just go in, lay down, they'd play, you'd leave. So you're missing like your preparation and understanding like what it is that you're actually getting yourself into. What are your intentions? What is the possibility of going into this space? What is this Hermetic stressor going to do for you? So you have a little bit of understanding of like, what is this experience going to be like? And then your follow-up afterwards, like, okay, what other meditational practices can I take with me to access that space again? What type of reflection can I do to really reflect on and like keep this transformation with me? Or what can I learn from the experience that I saw or had or felt during that experience that I can create actions in my life coming out of this now? So that's kind of the stuff that I'm now thinking about is like, how can we combine all of this to really create like lasting transformation for people and then support them in that lasting transformation too?
So let me
Breath
ask,
practice or whatever.
sure. Now, you mentioned that the gongs are a hermetic stressor. So,
Yeah,
is the idea very similar to the Wim Hof in terms of trying to find calm in the midst of the stress?
100%.
I mean, that's the goal. So even as the gongs are ringing and it's
Yeah.
taking you, to that higher space, you're trying to breathe through it and stay in that more calm space. Is that?
Exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
what I do is I put people into a really calm space from the very beginning, which is why like the yoga nidra comes in, where you're doing body scanning, where you're doing breath work to get into that space of uh, connectedness with your own body, so that when the gong actually comes in with like the transformational playing, which is like where you like really bring up the gong, you bring up the other gong, and you play these waves so that people can.
Chris, I think we lost the sound, buddy.
Did you lose it?
Bear with me just one
No
moment.
worries. Mine's still here.
I don't hear you. I apologize.
That's all right. No worries.
Are you back
Can you
yet?
hear me now? Anything?
No, shoot.
Let me try changing my. I'm
Yeah, I'm not sure
working.
what changed.
Let me check my setting. I can hear you. Can you hear me now? Microphone. Yeah, it should be working. Huh. Okay. Well, he's saying he can hear both of us. Maybe try logging out and then click back on the. Can you hear me now? Anything? So yeah, I can't hear you now. Yeah, okay. He's gonna log in and then log back out. Can you hear me still? Okay. Technical difficulties, we'll see. I may have to restart the whole thing. I don't really know. Hopefully he can log back in. There we go. He's back. Can you hear me now?
I sure can. I don't know
Sweet.
what the heck happened. Yeah, it just said it never
Technology.
occurred. And all right, glad to have you back. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's funny.
Breathing through it. I love it. I love the comments. Thanks for hanging in there, guys.
Yeah. Breathing through it. I love it.
That's great.
But yeah, let's see, where were we at? We were at the hermetic stresses of the gongs. Yeah. So in those experiences, it's really about getting you into the deepest state of relaxation first. So using the body scanning, using the connection with the breath, whatever type of led meditation that is, but really a led meditation to get people into that state of being able to feel every cell in their body, being able to feel the energy pulsing within them from the breath, and then going into usually no voice at all, but just with the sound and the vibrations of the gongs. And in person, especially, like it works also headphones, like online, like we're making that work. In person, I think it's probably a little bit more powerful because you're with a group of 50 people and you're in the room with the vibration. That being said, I do believe that when you have a bunch of people online all doing this together, it has a very similar effect of that group mentality and that group power. And the gongs will literally, like people say, it's like the vibration is cradling their mind or cradling their experience. And if you have any tension, or if you have any resistance in your brain or in your body, it's going to be uncomfortable. So you really have to be aware of that and take yourself out of that stress and harmonize with the sound. It's exactly like harmonizing with the cold. You can sit there and breathe deeply. You can sit there and breathe slowly, and you'll be able to be in the cold. Or you start fighting it, and that doesn't work. You can't fight the sound of a gong. It's gonna be really annoying if you do that. And it's not like I'll go in there and just like smack a gong really hard. It's all about bringing it up slowly and using the waveform of that to create an experience that people can harmonize and have a high where they go, oh my God, it's almost at the top of my ability to harmonize with that. And then it comes back down again and then do a little bit higher afterwards. So it's all about creating that experience where they are already fully relaxed, and so that they can see and show themselves that they're able to harmonize with stressful situations, that is expanding their stress resilience. Like they're able to control their stress response. It's giving them that same opportunity minus the cold.
So let me ask you, Chris, how do you prep people to get them into that space initially? Just because I find that people struggle to find that space at all. You know what I mean? What do you take them through? Like, what is the process? And is it a 5-minute deal? Is it a 30-minute deal? What does it take? Is it an hour?
It depends. I prefer to have an hour and a half.
Yeah. For the prep. You're talking about for the prep.
No, for the whole thing. It would be like an hour and a half that would include like basically an hour of prep. And then like 30 minutes of just the transformational gong journey.
Yeah.
It involves, 4 different levels basically that you're taking people through to get them into that relaxed state at the beginning. And that's using the gongs as accentuation during that process. So, you'll have like you'll be doing like a body scan, and, you'll be like right shoulder, right shoulder, first finger, second finger.
Just to bring them into those different spaces on the
fourth finger. Yeah. And so you'll, do a rotation all the way through the entire body as that first level of relaxation. So now they're connected with their body. Then you'll go into the breath. And I've been using some more of the Wim Hof method breath work in this space in a relaxed manner, really connecting them in with how do you breathe? So connecting in with fully relax, fully let your body go, let all of the stress in your body go, and then just focus on small breaths at the beginning, and then build up and expanding with your diaphragm, building out to your sides, building out to your back, and, taking them through that rather than just going automatically into breathe deeply, go for it. No, we're going to focus on what is the mechanic of the breath. Breathe into just your belly, breathe into just your chest, breathe up into your head, then put it all together, and then really work on creating that waveform and that cyclical breath where you're really showing them, get to the top, let it out immediately. Like, don't pause at the top, don't pause at the bottom, just create that. And just doing it basics, like giving them the ability. In person, it's a little bit easier to lead them all. Online, I'll tell them, basic, do 4 in, 6 out, and focus on doing that and count it. because I'm not going to lead every single breath in this process. Everybody's going to be breathing however they want. A little bit faster for some in the morning. Some people it's going to be nighttime. They can breathe a little bit slower. But yeah, going into those different areas. And then, if I did the full yoga nidra experience, then I'd go into visualizations, and then I'd use archetypes, and then I would use a journey. And then at the very end of that journey, where they lead off into something, then starts the real the transformational gong, where they're almost in a dream state, where they're basically like as far down into relaxation as you can get besides sleep. And that's where really the gongs will be brought in. And that's where they're the most effective too, to do that. Because you're already in that space, and okay, here I am in this space of awareness, in this space of relaxation. Yes, there are gongs playing. That is a source of entropy. That is a source of emotion. That is a source of whatever it is. And they have to let go. But they are also in a space where they have already let go. So, it's the same type of thing with the power breathing. You'll get people laughing. You'll get people crying. You'll get people moving. You'll get people doing whatever it is that they need and whatever it is that they feel, because they just caught up with themselves. They just let themselves catch up to themselves. And so there's whatever's there for them. And it's a really fun practice. I can do, smaller, shorter half-an-hour versions where you have short 2-round breath, a body scan, and then go into the gong playing with a little bit of affirmations and stuff like that too, which is also quite effective. But I love to have an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So a lot of the practices prior to the Wim Hof method for me that involve deep body awareness and so forth, they need a time like that. They do. Totally. You get through it. Tai Chi is very much like that. You just practice slowly, and you'll build to this space where you can be incredibly deep in that movement meditation. Yeah. And when you have that time, it's incredibly invaluable.
Yeah. I've been doing online sessions. Basically, I have another 2 of them coming up on Thursday of next week on the 14th, one at 7:30 in the morning and one at 5:30 in the evening. That'll be about an hour. And just, there's another whole game doing this stuff online. Sure. It's really cool, actually, because you're able to access people that aren't willing to go out to a yoga studio, that aren't willing to get out to go wherever, or they're not able to, or whatever it is, but they are able to throw on a pair of headphones and be laying down in bed in their underwear or whatever on the couch and get a similar experience to this, which I'm really drawn to right now, because I feel like with leading the breath and with leading these types of experiences online, if you can get good quality sound out and integrate in some intentions and some follow-up at the end of it, you can really have a big impact.
And people need it right now more than ever, man.
Super need it right now, dude.
Right now more than ever. Yeah. So that's a beautiful thing that you're doing, brother.
It's fun. And yeah, dude, yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, and I'm really excited. I really want to go, and when we're able to get together and do things together again, to volunteer to help out on one of your Wim Hof experiences too. And I know you're one of your other emphases is on being in nature, right?
100%. Yeah.
So how does that manifest with your teachings and with your events?
I mean, it's really important. I mean, as much as I love the ice bath, and I think it's a true value, 95% plus of my workshops involve being in nature, going to cold rivers, going to cold lakes, doing mountain hikes, laying in the snow, whatever combination. It's typically
Greenlake,
rivers
for
and lakes.
example.
But what's that?
Greenlake, for example.
Yeah, when I first started off, Greenlake was like the primary deal, because we could just walk across the street, and all winter long it's great, until about April it's cold, and then it starts warming up where it's no longer accessible. But so probably for the first year and a half, maybe 2 years that I ran stuff, I did Greenlake by far the most, maybe almost exclusively outside of retreats. But then I got to this point where I wanted to search for cold in the Pacific Northwest. Nice. That was kind of the model that was driving. And I was like, where can we go that's, relatively close to the studio in Greenlake, within an hour drive or so, hour and 15 minutes. And could we create experiences for people to just disconnect? Because as much as Greenlake did help people connect to themselves, when you get out of the city for even just a couple of hours and you have a transformative experience like getting into a deep, cold lake that's, 35 degrees, 36 degrees, it's got a whole nother level of power.
Totally.
And so I just found that, we would do silent meditations on the walk to the lake.
Oh yeah, that's one of the best parts of this whole thing.
Man, it's great.
Is that setup and that like initial silence. It's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could you could tell like early on people struggle sometimes with like having that. It's like, whoa, what are we doing here? I haven't had this opportunity to just be with myself, and I'm going into something that's a little bit unknown, maybe a little bit fearful of going into the cold in the first place. And so you start stacking these things together, and all of a sudden people really have to rise to an occasion, and they do. They absolutely do.
With the breath.
And with the breath, that's right. And they get an opportunity to just be with themselves and just for a moment sit with that discomfort.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to distract yourself to that point, and then you end up having this difficult experience, and then okay, that's one thing. You come out of it, that's great. But when you have to sit with that discomfort a little bit and show up, gosh, isn't that a mirror for life? So much more. And you move through that and you go, hey, I know something about myself. I am capable. I am empowered. I can't step forward in these shoes. So I found that that's been a really helpful piece. And we have a lot of fun too. We goof off. We have a great time. Don't get me wrong. But, injecting some of these different elements that with just a small little bit will go so far. I try to do so. And certainly nature is one of them. Go play in the rocks, go play in the rivers safely, of course. Go play in the, and finding the different spots to do it. Some of that,
I'll have to pick the brain on that later for sure.
I'm happy to divulge any of my secrets, man.
Nice.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I want people in nature, get out there, get have fun.
We should collaborate. I'll bring out some gongs and we can do like on a nice summer day, get people frozen in the river and then laying down in the sun and then do a sound bath.
Oh, that is the best.
Dude.
You can get cold and a sunny day.
Yeah.
That combination is where it's at, man. I took a group to Lake Diablo up north in northern Washington.
Yeah.
And the lake was no more than 35, 36. It was cold. It was cold. And I believe it was in early April or maybe March. Mm-hmm. And so it had to be in March because it was cold. In any case, but we had the most beautiful sunny day. And getting out of that where you're, all of your skin just feels really tight. Yeah. And, you're glowing red and you just step outside with that exogenous heat. It's outstanding, man. There's almost nothing better.
Totally.
It's good. It's good.
I'm gonna have to go get like 12 bags of ice after this. I'm in my bathtub. I don't have a freezer yet.
Right on.
I totally get it. Bath right now.
Yeah. Well, it just makes it. it's exhilarating.
It totally is. Yeah.
And to connect back with nature is just where it's at. So as we live in Washington, we are super, super blessed to be in a space in an area that within an hour drive, you can be in multiple different mountains, lakes, rivers, streams, all kinds of access and variation.
Totally.
I live 5 minutes away from the Sound. The Sound is cold year round, it doesn't ever get over 55, that's a warm spell.
I'm a 8-minute walk from the Sound on Bainbridge Island. I live right next to the ferry.
Beautiful, brother. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. The Sound is a playground for me. I'm less than a 5-minute drive. If I want to take a short bike ride or go for a 30-minute walk, whatever it is, it's there as well. It's outstanding.
So nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm super stoked. That's going to be awesome. Well, hey, I've got this like really cool quote that you wrote that I really like, and I wanted to just read it and then kind of ask your like what all else do you do with it? But it's by hacking into our evolutionary makeup using tools accessible to all, we can become a tribe who rise above the things that hold us back from achieving lasting happiness, strength, health, productivity, and higher consciousness. So awesome. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just like, what is, I know we've talked about the Wim Hof method and a little bit about the breath work and stuff like that. What there are a lot of people right now who are dealing with anxiety and stress and fear and all of this stuff that aren't yet willing to jump in and do 15, 20 minutes of breath work.
Okay.
What is one of the simplest and like most impactful techniques, like something reproducible that you can share with people that anyone can do, that anyone can use in a time of stress to manage that stress, and not just manage it, but to really like thrive out of it?
Mm-hmm.
What's something that you've got for us, like a tool or a technique or something that you can share with people that will watch this video?
Sure. I mean, you mentioned something along these lines that I'm going to share with you now just a few minutes ago, but it was a longer exhale than an inhale. So if you're not willing to do 20 minutes of breath work to get started, or you're not really certain about it, or whatever the case may be, I totally understand. Start with the simplest thing. So on a micro level, every breath in activates our action state within our nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And every breath out activates the rest state. That's on a micro scale.
I love that.
Okay, so between those two, for example, when I breathe in, my heart rate speeds up a little bit. And when I breathe out, it slows down just a little bit, every breath. Right? And that's sort of a manifestation of that process. The difference there is called heart rate variability. Right? And for good health, you need good heart rate variability.
That's what this measures.
Yeah.
I get it now.
So to understand that piece, okay, well, now I understand, like, if I'm stressed and my heart rate is going up along with that stress, which is what happens when we have a stress response induced, then to shift down and to just extend your exhales a little bit longer can help you.
Got it.
I would say if you didn't know anything, you didn't want to practice anything, but you're laying in bed and you're like, I am so anxious, or whatever it is, or you meet something that is scary to you out, in life, maybe somebody's threatening or anything like that. You could draw it across the board, extend your exhale a little bit longer. And that's the simplest hack that you can do.
Got it. I love that. That's incredibly applicable and super easy and valuable. Definitely. And I've got a follow-up to that. With the exhale, so I have this like history of asthma and anxiety and all of this stuff. So really this exploration into breath for me is all new. And even like the mechanics of the breath and how it works in my body is all new. And there's so much where I pick up somewhere in my head in the past, somebody said somewhere something about not like pushing all the way out to the bottom of your breath. Mm-hmm. But I've been finding that means that my exhales are always so short, and I tend to be at the top of my capacity so much all the time. Mm. And so when you're saying to push out, like, and extend that exhale, are you kind of tensing your diaphragm? Like, what's the mechanics of a relaxed but extended exhale? Like, how would you describe that for people?
So I'm going to give just a little bit of physiology.
Please do.
Not to distract everybody, but I think it will be helpful.
Yeah.
So if my full capacity, my absolute full capacity, my lungs is, let's see if I can get in the thing, rather than use it in milliliters, because I think that'll just confuse people. We won't do it in milliliters. We'll just say this much space is my full capacity. Okay. Well, at the bottom here, roughly this far, let's just say, this is residual air that will always be there. If I don't have it, my lungs will collapse. So it always stays there. I can't actually push past this space.
It's impossible to push past, unless you get like punched in the...
Nope, not even if you got punched.
No?
If it did, your lungs would collapse and it would be a terrible thing. So I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm saying that the likelihood is extremely slim. You'd have to have a puncture or something else.
You're saying get rid of the anxiety behind the thought process. You could ever get rid of that.
You can't do it. Okay. More or less. All right. So for all intents and purposes, it's just, you can't push past this.
Got it.
When you breathe out. Okay. So now you've got this other space that's stacked on top of it. And this is at what you can actually forcefully exhale. That was this part, right? And I still have air in my lungs, even though I can't push out anymore, that's still there.
Yeah.
All right. Now, when we normally breathe, it's in this middle space. That's just a passive breath. I don't even have to be involved in this. I don't even have to actively pull or push. My nervous system will do it on its own. That's called autonomic breathing. Okay. And then I can actively pull in, and I can actively pull in a lot. So let's do that. Whoa, that's a big breath, right? So that was a lot of air compared to this other bit.
Totally.
Okay, so when I talk about exhaling, what I typically am doing is it's based a little bit on how much I pulled in. So if I'm trying to do just a little bit longer of an exhale, then I'll actively pull in just a little bit, not forcefully, but I'll engage the breath a little bit more. So that I can push out a little bit more. Now I still had more I could pull in. I've got a lot that I could pull in, but that's not what I'm talking about here. So when I'm feeling that stress, I like to keep the breath moving and then just push just a little bit, just letting it go. And just a little bit out, just guiding it. It's almost like a gentle.
You're not creating any additional tensity or tenseness in those muscles. Because, like, for example, when you get up to the very top, you can expand and it's tense. You're reaching that kind of top part. So when you're talking about doing that longer exhale, it's just a little bit in. You're not tensing. You're not trying.
That's right.
And difficult. There's no force, as Wim says. And then you're just kind of put out maybe a little bit further than what you normally would.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just go beyond that middle space. Just a little bit, push into it.
And you're not trying to go.
No, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that's a really big deal. And you mentioned tension, and tension is a principle.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about tension created throughout the muscular system or cardiovascular system, tension in life, we can use it in all kinds of different contexts. It's a life principle. And to be able to control tension is huge if you're looking to master the stress response, right? Be aware of the tension.
Yeah.
And we talk about relaxation all the time. Relax, relax, relax. But if we don't know what tense feels like and we don't know how to engage tension, it's going to be hard to be able to relax, right? We need to understand both coins. In martial arts, for example, there's many exercises that I need tension. And yet if I have extraneous tension, I won't have a good move. If I'm overly relaxed, I won't have a good move. If you're a musician, if you don't have proper tension within your tongue and your cheeks and your palate and all of these other pieces, you're not going to be able to play the instrument. So it's a matter of really working with tension in its appropriate context. And so, and as you mentioned, I'm not trying to overly tense on this breath. It's just letting it go a little bit more, whether you're doing that through the nose or the mouth. I'll leave that up to you. We can get into that physiological conversation, but more importantly,
nitric oxide, get it.
Yeah. Well, nitric oxide is produced throughout the endothelial area, right? So endothelial cells are producing nitric oxide.
Endothelial, explain.
Okay, so within your smooth muscle, you have the endothelium, and there are cells that are producing nitric oxide to help control vascular tension.
In all of your smooth muscle?
Throughout the endothelial cells. Now, does the nose produce a lot of nitric oxide? Yes. Like you've got a lot of that tissue inside here as well. And it helps produce that. And nitric oxide, as we know, has a number of positive processes. It'll help dilate the smooth muscle to get better oxygen delivery to the heart. But you've got it all throughout. So all the endothelial cells have the capability of doing this. So it's important that we understand that even just taking a larger breath, period, is going to produce that in here. We can guide it more through the nose, right? We can augment that process, right? But it's not solo. It's not
this or nothing.
That's right.
Okay, good to know. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to happen throughout the body. So it's basically how we engage the breath. right? And if we engage the breath, that these processes start to happen. And so, as you mentioned, like your mission, have the breath work. Guys,
Seriously,
that is the most important piece, man. Just
it will help you in everything.
start paying attention to your breathing.
Yeah.
How soon should you try to play clarinet after 2?
Ask your heart doctor.
Yes.
That's my grandma. Thanks for being on, Grandma. I love you. We don't know.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I've got to get wrapped up here. I gotta head out around 1. So I got a couple of follow-up questions for you
Sure.
before we get off here. I love the longer exhale than the inhale. That's a super powerful and simple thing that people can use. So I'll definitely be sharing that more too. I really love that.
Sure.
Where can we find you?
Great. So right now, I run a series of different classes and so forth, but probably the most accessible is mattsoule.com, MATTSOULE.com. If you go there, you can access my Inner Fire Seattle website. You can access my Evolution of Martial Art website and so forth. And so that's probably the best space. On social media, I'm Soule MD. M as in Matthew, D as in David. SouleMD.com. Or
Gotcha.
at SouleMD, I guess.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of those links in the Facebook event as well. So if people want to go find them in there, they can find you there. What's next for you?
So I've been really trying to figure out how I can deliver better breathing to our community during this time. And I had planned on doing a club that was called Cold Club, where we get together and regularly practice some different cold elements and breathing elements. But in this environment, that's a challenge. So I'm trying to see if I can shift and offer some new breathing practices and connections online. I plan to roll out a thing called breath play.
Yeah.
And so we're going to learn different mechanics and do different specific exercises around those physiological, all of the different physiology behind the different breathing practices and exercises, and learn something each week and then do some sessions around it. So I've got 100 exercises or so that I've come up with that I plan to just roll out and play with. And anybody that wants to be a part of it, I'd love to have you be part of it.
Dude, yeah, let me know. I will be on that. That sounds amazing. I want to do it.
Excellent.
And then my last question is what is the impact that you want to have on the world?
What is the impact I want to have on the world? My specific goal is I want to reach 25,000 people by 2022 with engaging on the deepest part of their physiology in terms of mastering the stress response. That's really what I'm after. I want 25,000 people that will become masters, that will commit to mastery of the stress response. Nice. That's what I want.
I freaking love it, man. That's awesome. That's so cool. If there's anything I can do to help out in that, I would love to collaborate and help you make that goal be a reality. I mean, let's double it.
I love it, Chris. Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Matt. Do you like Matt or Matthew the best?
I prefer Matt, probably. I mean, I go by both, but yeah, Matt is great.
Perfect. Well, yeah, thank you so much, man, for being here. This has been wonderful. I've learned a ton. I'm sure that anybody who is on today has learned a ton. Anybody that will watch it will learn a ton. I'm going to turn this into a podcast as well and release these in different locations on iTunes and some other places too. So thank you so much for being one of the beginning guests on this whole thing. As I mentioned at the beginning, the mission in these conversations is to bring you wisdom through vulnerably discussing transformational life experiences and imparting the impactful techniques and life hacks that will connect you to your most powerful self. So let's all keep expanding our beings together. Please like, share, subscribe, join Soundsmith Worden. And until next time, you beautiful beings, thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, totally.